Hi everyone. In a previous chat with Mr. Siddharth Padarth, the Senior Vice President at Posta Solutions, we've spoken a little bit about how organizations are managing the data surge and how technology can play a part in this. But we just scratched the surface barely on that topic. So we are back with another insightful discussion with Siddharth to know more in detail about the part that data plays in all of this. Hi Siddharth, it's a pleasure meeting with you up again.
First, the pleasure is all mine. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation last month and looking forward to another insightful discussion. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Siddharth. So let's start with a question that most organizations are very confused about. It's about how establishing a data analytics function. How does it work and how similar it is in establishing when compared with other functions? If not, like if it's not similar, how different it is fundamentally, and how can you proceed with establishing the same?
Well, excellent question, Sudha. I wish more organizations ask this question about how data and analytics function is going to be different than other organizational functions before starting or initiating that conversation. But anyways, in my opinion, right, organizations have evolved in a way over the last 200 years or so, where most of the functions operate reasonably independent with some minor overlap. Right? Of course, sales is done for the product which you are making, but sales operate independently, marketing operates independently, the supply chain function operates independently, and so on. However, there have been some organizational functions or divisions, for example, HR, procurement, which are shared services, IT, and data and analytics also, in my opinion, needs to operate in a very different engagement model. To deliver the best value to each function, the data and analytics organization needs to be coupled very tightly with other divisions in the organizational matrix rather than being completely independent. And I feel that rather than the bigger problem to solve than setting up a data and analytics function is a massive cultural change for the entire organization about how to use that data and that analytics. It's very similar to sustainability discussions that is happening every day across the globe now, right? That driving ESG goals for an organization is not just a problem for a chief sustainability officer. I think of it as it is a problem of every business, every region, every team, every employee, and to some extent, every customer and every supplier. Only when everybody comes together, then we should be able to reach the sustainability goals. It needs to be embedded in the part of organizational DNA. Data and analytics should operate very similarly, where every organizational element has to become data literate in order to make that data and analytics function viable or productive. Now, reports and dashboards are not new, right? We have seen reports and dashboard over the last 20 years or so that I have seen from day one, reports and dashboards have been prevalent. Okay, however, consistently over the last 20 years, we have also seen that leaders have not been very happy with how the reports and dashboards are actively being used to drive data-driven decisions. Like the reason for this limited adoption, well, there are so many reasons, but the most commonly acceptable reason is that the creators of report and dashboard always try to push the analytics onto business user. Here is a report on inventory forecast, use it. But the effort is never made by business users to actually pull the information correctly. So that collaboration between the report and data team, data and analytics team, and the business user needs to be a lot more coupled together. So what a data and analytics function can succeed where many other model has failed with being a better collaboration and create a pull effect. We need to understand, right, that the business, how the business operates, what requirements do they have, and build the report and dashboards that are actually relevant to the business and not just something fancy that I have created. Okay, the story has to be written in such an engaging way that eventually the business needs to come back and say, I want more of this. Can you do this also? So that is one of the more fundamental things that data and analytics function needs to do better in order to be acceptable throughout the organization. And to generate this effectiveness, like how do I make that data and analytics function better? So easier said than done, obviously. But there are a couple of divisions or departments that have done that transformation. If I refer to some success stories about HR transformation and procurement transformations from my prior experiences, okay, the hybrid between centralized and decentralized models have worked reasonably well. It works like a hub and spoke model, where a data analytics function can be at the hub or at the center of the organization, and every business user is spread out at the spokes. And now the main activity of data aggregation, data source identification, data estate development happens at the hub. The business requirement of what the analytics has to be created or what use cases to be addressed comes from business users situated at the spokes, and then they pull the required analytics information from the hub. So that hybrid between centralized and decentralized model is what I would suggest may be better suited for success of data and analytics function rather than creating a standalone function. I hope that answers your.
Yes, Siddharth, it's a great way to put it. Like instead of going from a push to pull model and treating it as a hub and spoke model. But Siddharth, I'm thinking about it. But where do organizations fall behind? Or if I have to put it in simpler terms, what are the challenges they face in making this transition from the push to pull model?
Oh, you do ask some tough questions, Sudha. Well, there are just so many challenges in establishing a data analytics function. If I have to list all of them down, they'll probably become like a book. But I'll not bore you with a lot of details, but I'll stick to 5 key challenges that I feel are the most critical ones. The first one is at that I would say is the analytics culture. I feel organizations still trust experience, instinct, comfort a lot more than they would trust a data. Okay, data is the new oil. Most people or leaders you would see notice saying that, but very few have actually the pump this oil into their trucks that they call as business. Leaders frequently make decisions based on perceptions or hunches rather than data. Now, don't get me wrong, right? I absolutely love the stories of heroism and where hero defeats all the odds and does something just based on gut feeling. But those are very few and far between. Like if we would have gone with fact, logic, and data, nobody would have trusted Frodo with the ring to take it to Mordor. Okay, but those are exceptions. On a day-to-day basis, business leaders may have to lead by example to build a culture where other leaders or their subordinates are more comfortable using data to make decisions. Team members need to be a lot more recognized and even rewarded, right, for taking data-backed decisions. Building this analytics culture, in my opinion, is the most significant deterrent in continued success or building of a data and analytics function. Now, if you jump to number 2, right, the number 2 challenge will become access to the right, reliable, timely, as well as very high quality data. Sometimes it may seem as if the teams, organizations are continuously following up or chasing data. You solve for 100 sources, another 100 will show up. You want to make sure that you captured all the procurement data via invoices and whatnot, then suddenly the P-card data comes up. Then there is suddenly expense data comes up, the travel data comes up, and so on. The data keeps adding up. Or one of the ways to get out of this chase is to stop chasing the data and go for the value instead. Now, recognizing that not all data will become useful on day one, right? Identifying the end objective, what do we want to get out of the data, and then going backwards and finding the data that will help you achieve that end objective may be a more meaningful approach. And that brings me to the second challenge, right? Suppose we have all the data sources that we identified. Now we know where the data resides. That assimilation of all of those data sources from different sources could be ERP systems, could be third-party applications, could be SaaS platforms, could be SharePoint files, and so on. Building all of those data from multiple sources into a unified system where data can be stored, connected, cleansed, transformed, and ultimately created as a data catalog. To solve for that challenge, I think we are very lucky to have been living in an age where there are so many reliable cloud platforms available like Azure, AWS, GCP. All of them are extremely capable and have a lot of out-of-the-box services that can be used for making that unified data estate for us. So let's talk about the fourth challenge, like figuring out what to do with the data. Now, on any given day, there are a zillion analytics use cases that may require a business user's attention. The challenge is to pick a few meaningful initiatives that can actually create an impact. It's really like, I really like the adage that says, dream big, start small, and scale fast. That start small is a very, very important step in the process because it gives us an opportunity to get familiar with the data, get acquainted with the systems, understand the methods of working, and give a sense of accomplishment to the whole team in the short term. So that prioritization of data analytics use cases is the fourth challenge that I think business users face. And last but definitely not the least is the ownership of the analytics use cases. Now, analytics use cases, as far as my understanding or suggestion goes, they are never one and done. You work on it and then you keep on working on it throughout a life cycle to keep on extracting more value. Now, there are so many optimization opportunities, utilization of advanced technologies, artificial intelligence, machine learning, integration of ChatGPT, to name a few, right? To improve the level of values that can be derived from a particular analytics use case. An ideal function to be the gatekeeper of such a use case could be data and analytics organization. They are expected to be at the forefront of analytics technologies, keep engaging with business users, understanding their end-to-end requirement or day-to-day requirement, working with them to forecast what more a business can require. And hence a data and analytics organization will be the best gatekeeper for such a ownership of the analytics use cases. So to summarize, I think quickly, analytics culture, presence of data sources, assimilation of data sources into a unified technology, prioritization of analytics use cases, and then ownership of that analytics use case. Those 5 would be my top 5 challenges. I hope that answers your question, Sudha.
Yes, Siddharth, that's really insightful about how you spoke about the 5 challenges involved. Can you also elaborate a little bit about the role that chief data officers would be playing in the coming days?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're right. We are hearing a lot of new designation called chief data officers in the market. Now, historically, creating a chief officer position has served as a signaling mechanism for the market, for the investors, for employees, and for other entities to indicate an organizational priority. Whatever things organizations prioritize the most, they start appointing a chief officer around it, like chief operations officer, chief finance officer, chief supply chain officer, chief procurement officer, and all of these positions have had an organic evolution. Now, a services company may not usually have a chief supply chain officer because supply chain is typically not their most important function. So in the same spirit, creating a chief data officer or chief analytics officer or chief data and analytics officer, these are all 3 common terms, is a signal to employees, investors, market, and potential employees that data is very important to us and we strive to be a data-driven organization. I think the market is recognizing now the importance of data and analytics, and creation of executive role is a big first step in encouraging the organization to be a lot more data-centric in their decision making. Okay, now as we were discussing challenges, I highlighted one significant role of the CDAOs is to be the guardian of analytics use cases. And the second significant role that I can talk about is definitely data governance, right? I don't see data management as one of the key roles of CDAO organization, but definitely data governance is a critical aspect of that function.
So, Siddharth, this was one other thing that I wanted to discuss with you, data governance. We keep hearing about data governance in all forums nowadays. How different is it from data management, and why is everyone talking about it?
You are right, Sudha. No, we do see a lot of interchange usage between data management and data governance, and terms are being used very loosely. Now, there is one viewpoint that these questions is a very academic in nature, and it is best to let the academicians concern themselves with the literal definition. However, there is a practical definition or practical usage that may be more important. In my understanding, as a common business language, I see data management as the task of collecting data from the point of generation from the data sources, capturing it, taking it all the way till the end where it actually becomes useful to someone for consumption. So all the steps in the interim, such as ingesting the data from their data sources, creating a centralized IT infrastructure to pull that data in, transforming it, storing it, cleansing it, integrating it, and sending it to endpoint systems. These are all part of data management. So the entire infrastructure of data lake, ETL, and data warehousing tools, everything becomes part of data management. And typically that is a CIO territory. Now, data governance, on the other hand, refers to the procedures, policies, access control around how to use that data, which the IT organization has helped collate with so much of pain. Governance can define how long the data is going to be useful or relevant to us. Is the data of reasonable or sufficient quality in order to make business judgment? Governance can also define who owns the data, who should have access to the data, how long should the data reside on our premises, and how long is the data going to be relevant for us to be able to interpret it and make decisions. Now, the importance of governance may be better understood in the hypothetical scenario in what if governance is not there. So in the absence of data governance, all data is readily available to everyone with very limited guardrails. Imagine putting customer PII information to be poorly protected. Business end users may be having overwhelming amount of data making decision based on that information becomes so much more difficult for them. It will almost be like all finance, sales, inventory, raw material, market research data, every file being dumped into a SharePoint site and giving employees access to that file and thinking, okay, you go make sense out of it. I know I'm painting a very scary picture out there, but unfortunately, this is exactly how businesses used to operate till a few years back. Only after the advent of data warehouse and data lakes, businesses have become a lot more structured in managing or maintaining their data. Only in the past few years, data governance is taking center stage in helping organizations structure their entire data and present the data in a very methodical way for business user consumption. Now the business users have access to data catalogs, advanced technologies that they can use to make very meaningful decisions. And this responsibility of the CDO organization or roles makes the function so much more powerful and critical to the continued success of the business. Okay. So that's what I would suggest will be the key difference between data management and data governance and the importance of data governance.
Yes, Siddharth. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today with all of your insights about data, technology, ownership, and governance, and many other topics. I'm looking forward to talk to you in the future with more and more topics about analytics. Thank you, Siddharth.
Absolutely, Sudha. As usual, the pleasure was mine. I enjoy sharing my views with you and with the customers. And in future, we'll talk again. Hopefully, we can get into a little bit more detail about data governance. Okay. Thank you for having me. Bye.
Thank you, Siddharth. Bye.